Welcome back to Learning Matters. I'm your host, Doug Woldridge, and today we have a great guest. We've got Vanessa Alzate, the CEO and founder of Anchor Training, as well as the owner and president of Kirkpatrick Partners, joining the show to discuss how TikTok and short-form content has transformed the way that people learn. Let's get to the interview. So thanks so much for joining us today, Vanessa. I want to start with what brought you into the world of learning and development, and also what led you to founding Anchor Training.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for having me. I've been a fan of the podcast and the organization for a while, so it's an honor. Well, I got into instructional design and learning. I went to college to be a lawyer. I was going to...
Oh, wow.
I studied communication and political science. It's going to be in Elwoods. And my father was a lawyer. I was going to follow in his footsteps. And I decided around my junior year, I just really did not want to go through the whole law thing. And it just didn't feel like my path. And so, well, what do you do with a communications degree? Feels like anything and everything. So in college, I also was part of a sorority, as well as the council that governed all of the sororities on campus, the Pan-Atlantic Council. And as such, I was responsible for creating educational programming. And then I did some other roles, and I would create training for, my other team members and things. And I was like, oh, this feels pretty cool. I really liked doing it. My Greek advisor, I gave her an outline for a training one day, like a retreat. I think it was like a 2-day. And she looked at it and she was like, this is good, but you can do better. And that was the spark of, okay, you gave me a challenge. How do I do this? And then I was like, I think that there must be a way to do this for work. I graduated during the economic crash of 2008. Not everybody's favorite time to talk about.
Oof.
Yeah. So I was looking for just about anything that I could do with work. So corporate training or training was one of my keywords. And on Craigslist, of all places, I did not find the Craigslist killer, but I found a job. And at that time, it was the only job that said, we will train you.
Well, thank God.
Yeah, right. So I started working at a software CRM company and was able to then, get my feet wet in instructor-led training, creating e-learning, which at the time I hated, and all of these different aspects. Oh, yeah. And then... yeah, after I left there, just kind of that bug hit me and I couldn't let it go. I went into onboarding. I did a brief stint in office management and HR, where I was the only female at that organization. And just, I loved what I was doing for that organization. And, still think so highly of that org. But I knew I missed training. And I was always freelancing. Ever since I left my first job, I was always freelancing on the side. And things just kind of started to snowball from there. Until, when you're young, single, no kids, you can work full-time and freelance and you have a lot of time. And then I got married, had my first daughter, and about 3 months later found out I was pregnant with my second daughter. So I looked at my husband and I was like, I can't do 2 kids. Yeah, I can't do 2 kids under 1 and a full-time job. And at that point, it became a full-time freelance job. So that's how Anchor Training came to be. So I always said, instead of 2 kids, I now have 3. At that time, right? I had my 2 kids, and then I had this business that I'd figure out what to do with. And in all honesty, I just LLC'd under something other than my name, just out of a recommendation that my father gave me. But I had no intention of it becoming bigger than just myself. And then I got a large project in 2019, and I was like, oh, I actually kind of like this agency lifestyle. And that's how the Anchor Training that we all know today really came to be. But it was never intended to be anything more than just me.
That's crazy. I think a lot of folks would resonate with that story where you just have to make a major life change because that's how life works. So, best of intentions is It only gets you so far, and then when life gives you these changes, you just got to go, okay, now how are we going to roll with these punches? So that's very cool. One of the biggest reasons we wanted to bring you onto the podcast was to discuss your thoughts on how TikTok, social media, and YouTube has changed the way that we need to develop training for folks. So how has it really changed the landscape of learning and development?
Yeah. For me, TikTok has really shown us we can handle and we can absorb content in a really short amount of time if it's really valuable, and that we don't need all of the extra fluff. Now, it doesn't mean that everything out there needs to be a 30 to 60 second clip, but it really it has you look at your content differently and say, is this still too much, right? And really pare down and pare down and pare down. And for me, what I love so much about the platform is that it also democratized learning, right? So anyone can go on and create their own, quick tip and things like that. Now, doesn't mean it's all good information out there, but so we also have the internet. So that was always a thing anyway, right? And frankly, some of our subject matter experts,
right,
within our organizations weren't giving out great advice. It's always something that I hear from people. There's always that piece of it. But what I love so much about the platform is it's challenging us, right? And it's showing us that things can actually meet people where they're at. We can talk, instead of at them, we can talk to them, right? Just like having a conversation with someone. And that resonates more than having that super buttoned up professional sort of speak. And, what people really want in learning is someone to walk alongside them and be there when they need them, right? We don't want someone there to show them the way. I want to learn by trial and error and go and find the information if I need it in that moment. But I don't need you to clear the path. I want to try to clear the path for myself. And that's where I think we can really learn and leverage a lot. And also, I could go in a million different directions when it comes to TikTok. But I think it also helps to humanize your organization. We think of, I love to use TikTok for onboarding and pre-onboarding. Imagine being able to share with a new employee, hey, on your first day, let's give you a quick tour. You're going to park your car here. You're going to walk through here. Sally over here is behind the desk. She's going to welcome you, check you in, and make sure you're not a serial killer. And then she's going to bring you to the back. And she's going to show you where you're going to have your onboarding orientation. Here's the coffee. Here's the bathroom. Just helps to ease a little bit of that anxiety. And it helps to get messages across quicker, right? We are overloaded by email. We're overloaded by a lot of text. Imagine what we could share with our employees utilizing video. One of the things I love now is people do a lot of these podcast clips, right? You all use them too. Imagine just putting your CEO, putting a microphone, and you know what? You don't even have to plug it in, right? Some of those video clips on TikTok, that microphone that it looks like they're talking into isn't even plugged in. It's just for the look of the video. But imagine putting your CEO and having them share the vision for the organization and just doing it in interview style. And having that then be given out to your employees. There's just a lot of opportunity for us to make our organizations a little bit more human utilizing TikTok.
And what's your approach when you're talking to clients about how they can kind of transform their training needs into more digestible ways and in some ways more exciting content, especially clients who may have been focusing more on the traditional styles of e-learning in the past and those real long form, hour-long, maybe 2-hour-long type of presentations?
What's funny with that? I think we hear often that, so I will hear often, our organization will never get behind this, they don't like this, da 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 da. Yet the phenomenon I'm having when I'm meeting with VPs, CEOs, CHROs, CLOs, and they're saying, we need to TikTok our content. So like there's this really weird divide where like the individual contributors are saying, we need to do this, but like we can't. They won't let us. The C-level and the senior VPs are saying, we need to do this. Where is that not happening? And I think that there are ways to do it. Like, so saying TikTok is a shock factor, but the fact of the matter is, I don't care what happens with it. If it, goes away forever, someone buys it, whatever. The impact of TikTok has already happened, right? YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels. These things are already happening. Even our ads are becoming more TikTok style in their editing and the voice and the tone and how they start off a module. So I tell people like, it's not that the whole training is going to be TikTok style, but like, let's talk about how can we, if I'm doing an instructor-led training, I think of how would I TikTok this, right? So instead of opening up, a course with Welcome to Cybersecurity 101, right? Maybe we open the course with the why or like hook them in some way, right? Which is what you use in TikTok. And it's, have you ever been afraid to open up an email and click on the link thinking that you're going to be the one that brings down the entire company's firewall? That is a more interesting, like I would maybe pay attention to that cybersecurity training instead of welcome to cybersecurity 101. And then I'm just going to wait until the next button enables so I can just keep clicking. Not that I've taken any of those. So it's a way that we can reframe some of our language, some of our editing style. And if I start talking to clients in that manner, they start to get it. When I talk to clients about, hey, let's, take what you already have and make it TikTok style. Let's repurpose it. Let's borrow what marketing does and take this longer form content and let's cut it up into little pieces and get those major key points out, especially for things that are not compliance related or mandatory, right? It's the number one thing that we hear. I've made this great training. No one takes it. Well, you email them one time and you think that they're going to remember that? They're busy. You're not telling them why they need to participate in it. You're not exciting them about it. You're not even showing them like how much better it is than anything else you've ever created, right? You're just asking them to take you at your word. And your word might not mean a lot because the other content the department has put out maybe hasn't been that great. So this is your opportunity by taking little clips of it and saying, hey, here's a little snippet of what to expect. Here's a key point, and start to entice them in. And we know for marketing, right? It takes 7 to 8 touches before we actually commit something to memory and like consider maybe buying it. The same thing it should be applied when it comes to learning, especially these non-mandatory courses. We need to constantly be reminding people that it's available, why it's important to them, how it can support them, and give them little teasers, right? Movies. They don't just put a movie into the movie theater and think people are going to flock to it. There's trailers, there's commercials, there's advertisements. So if we start to take that and apply it to learning, maybe we'll start to see some different changes when it comes to this type of content that we're creating.
That's fascinating. I just think it's such an exciting approach to redeveloping the mindset of what training is like. The training industry has been ever changing. Ever since people started using the word e-learning, folks have been trying to figure out ways to make it more exciting, more relatable, something that the learner can actually take away what you're trying to give them. And I think that this is just a better way to showcase what they need to know and when they need to know it. So I've got a couple questions from our community that I'd like to kind of toss your way. So we'll start with this one. What are the major differences that we're seeing between the Gen Z workforce and then the workforce that we've known? And how are we kind of combating these differences?
Yeah. So the funny thing is they're not different at their core, right? So their core and what they value are the same things that we do, right? We want growth. We want to work at a company that we believe in, right? We just want to know the why. the difference is that we have had, and previous generations have had to just kind of shut up and deal with it if you haven't, like, if you don't figure it out. This generation doesn't do that, right? They don't they leave, or they try to make change. I tell people all the time, I literally with my own eyes have seen Gen Z change a, I don't know, 100-year-old policy and change it in a week just by sending a bunch of emails, honestly. If they don't like something, they're going to tell you. And even today, so I got sent to TikTok about Gen Z, and they're like, the difference between Gen Z and millennials is that we've always had the ability to find the why, right? Because we were born in the information age where it's all there. And so if organizations are not giving us the why, like, we're just checking out, right? Like, I need to know why this is important. I need to know why I'm going to participate in this, right? So it's not that they are fundamentally so different. It's that we've raised them. Not that I've raised a Gen Z. I'm not that old. My kids are Gen Alpha, to be clear, which is another generation I'm currently studying. But we've just raised them to be more critical thinkers and to stand up for themselves. So we get really upset when why can't Gen Z just get with it? They're doing what we taught them to do for years. Stand up for yourself. Don't, find out the why. Live a life of passion. Live a life of, meaning, and make sure you believe in it. They're doing what we've told them to do. So I think that it's not that it's so different. Their BS meter is just a lot lower tolerance than the rest of ours, honestly.
That is that is very true. And I think it's so much easier to buy into what you're doing with the company if you do have the why there for it. Because then you're not just sitting there questioning what your manager is asking you to do. You're taking it in, you understand it, and then you just execute. So, what if your company firewall blocks TikTok? So, can you still incorporate this TikTok style, or maybe mimic it in a way? How does that work?
Yeah. Do you want to know a secret? I don't edit in TikTok.
Yes.
I hate the TikTok editor personally.
Oh.
It is never, she and I have never 100% vibed. I've tried, and I'm like, it just feels a little bit harder.
That's
I don't know, something about it I just didn't love. I actually edit most of my stuff in Instagram Reels because I'm a millennial and I hold Instagram hard. But this is not about using TikTok. It's about using that style as inspiration. So you can use any video editor that you have out there. And now a lot of them are catching up to this style, and they're actually starting to include as some of their features with fonts and transitions and annotations and things like that, stickers. They're starting to incorporate that TikTok style into their package. So I'll use Instagram. I will use CapCut or InShot as well. I played around with both of those. I like CapCut more than InShot. I created software, TikTok style software training using Camtasia. And it can be done in Articulate as well. It's about just getting the landscape, the slide sizing right.
Yeah.
And it could be a TikTok style. And actually I remember seeing this in the Articulate community, they have those challenges. They had a TikTok style challenge to create a TikTok style video using Articulate. So it's really more about taking that inspiration and just applying it to the video editor that you're using. So that way you don't have to deal with the firewall.
Gotcha. And how adaptable is this approach to different types of industries and different types of training needs?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I think it's honestly adaptable. I've seen it used for anything and everything, right? I've seen it used for software. I've seen it used for soft skills. I've seen it used for more process-oriented things. I've seen it used for plumbing hacks and electric hacks, right? It's about getting the content, giving the people just what they need. And then if you want to start utilizing it, a great place to start is just by taking maybe one key point and say in like a longer form piece of content that you have and say, how can I take this key point and make like a little TikTok style video out of it to tease someone into taking that longer form content, right? I've utilized our webinars, our free webinars that we do at Anchored Training, and we'll take the key points or key moments and just create clips from them. A lot of organizations have internal podcasts, right? You can use TikTok style videos for your internal podcasts as well to get people to listen to that full podcast. So I think that there's different ways that you can utilize it. I love the green screen effect. When we're talking about policy and things like that and trying to humanize policy, I think would be pretty cool. And then, like I said, there's the ability to do software, right? We don't need to see a mouse moving across the screen. What we just need to know is like highlight where I have to click, tell me what the formula is if we're talking about Excel, and just give me like the quick and dirty, what do I have to do? And if you want someone to follow to get inspiration, Miss Excel is like number one for making something so boring and something that's still so challenging for many of us, your girl, number one, and making it understandable. And like I will be on her TikTok for a really long time, like mind blown, didn't think that Excel could do this.
That's awesome. And I'm going to rephrase this question. The original question is, can you customize it to suit various client needs? But I would rather just hear how you're customizing it to suit client needs and stuff. How do you make sure that you're following their brand guidelines and those type of things?
Yeah, so we really look at what is your brand. And we really, there's a difference of the, which we do a little bit of this in traditional learning, but we really, I really leverage marketing, right? And really understand what is your brand voice? What are the do's and don'ts? What do you say? What don't you say? What's the imagery like? So that I can take that and apply it to what it is that I'm doing. And then also it makes marketing happy. And like, I like to have a nice relationship with marketing because they can be really helpful. So that's how I'll customize it, but then I'll also customize it based on like what we're seeing and what we know, right? So for some customers, it's a lead-in into other forms of content. For other customers, like more like our retail clients, customers that have hourly staff and things like that, we're using it as a lot of their training material and just utilizing those quick videos, and then we're interspersing it, like we might embed it into a Rise module or something like that. So that way there's a mix of video and then, whatever activity it might be. We love using Rise for that because then, we can track it for compliance purposes, but also because Rise is so responsive and we know they have to use their phone, it gives us that flexibility and ability to do that and meet their needs. So, we want to make sure like they're getting a really good user experience. And using a tool like Storyline doesn't really give that.
Very fair. And how do you measure the effectiveness of TikTok style training content compared to more traditional methods?
Yeah, absolutely. So great question. So along with Anchored Training, I also own Kirkpatrick Partners. So measurement and evaluation is all of our jam. We love measuring over at Kirkpatrick. So what we'll see in order to like measure what we're looking at is like the clicks, the click-through rate. These are all analytics that your marketing team can help you understand and pull. Now, it depends on where you are hosting the TikTok style videos. Like you're not going to get a click-through rate from a Storyline SCORM file. But if you're hosting it on like a YouTube channel or like a private one, you can get those kinds of analytics. You can see where people drop off. That's why like the back end, I have a YouTube channel too. The back end of YouTube is fascinating. And I will spend a day really deep diving analytics, because it'll show me drop-off rate, it'll show me retention, it'll show me what keywords people are searching for. It gives you a lot of really good data to help make my content even better. So those are sort of some of the things that we're looking to measure if we have that ability. The other things that we're looking at is, how many more people are showing up to events because we're launching a TikTok style campaign to get them there, right? So what are our normal registration numbers and versus what are the registration numbers for this event? And then we'll look at things like, the amount of resource, click, like if there's a knowledge base, something like that, how many times are they utilizing the resource? That's how I am able to measure the effectiveness of these videos. And also some of it is truly like word of mouth. And what I love is I did a TikTok session at DevLearn 2 years ago now. And I want to say it was that Monday, I got a LinkedIn message from someone that was there, not my session. And he said, older gentleman, he, said that there was like a software rollout or upgrade, and he made it his announcement TikTok style. And he said that it was like 6 things that you had to remember about this upgrade. He said he got feedback and so many emails from people being like, thank you so much for doing it this way. I would have skipped your email or like not paid attention, but because it was a video, it stopped the scroll for me and I paid attention. So like if people are stopping the scroll for you, like, yes, that's a really good measurement that like, okay, we're doing something good, that they're actually paying attention to what it is that we're talking about here.
Very cool. And just to kind of wrap up some of what we're talking about here, what do you see as the future for L&D in terms of integrating social media and short form content? So are there any emerging trends that we haven't talked about that we should kind of keep an eye on?
Yeah, I think right now people are really obsessed with AI. So I think it's overshadowed like everything else, which is a shame, because everything else is kind of what you might actually need and not AI, right? That's still kind of too new. Doesn't mean you shouldn't play with it. I love to play with it. Me and ChatGPT are pretty friendly. But I think there's just a matter of, for me, it's like, we've got to stop. AI is not going to solve our problems, right? Really good sound content will always win over AI. Now, if we stop and look around, what are people paying attention to, and how are they living their lives, and how can we integrate learning into the business and into their flow of work? That is what we need to be doing. Adding more content that they have to stop and participate in, we're never going to win that, right? That's not going to be a sustainable future. Finding performance support and helping people pull the content when they need it is really, truly what people need. And then I would also say an emerging trend, not TikTok related, but I truly believe in the power of community, is curating really good in-person experiences where people are really able to connect. People are craving connection now. So online communities are growing rapidly, because people want to connect with others in a world in which we disconnected for so long. So I think that there is, we just hosted for Kirkpatrick our own summit last week. People didn't want to leave on the last day. They stayed around. They were helping us clean up. We were all dancing to Whitney Houston at the very end, just like making connection. That is what people want, right? And these are people that didn't know each other. Most of them were government and military. You want to talk about the most buttoned up people, or we perceive as the most buttoned up people. They're sitting there dancing and, jamming and just having connection with others. And they were like, this is what we needed. We needed this ability to meet, network, idea share, and just build that community. So I think that is the direction that we need to be shifting more into. But we stop because we fear all of the work behind building a community, right? And we're too bogged down in all of we've got to update this onboarding program. We've got to update this process, or we've got to update this. Maybe the solution is to stop it, build a community and then take some of that stuff and put it into this community. And that's where your social media can start to get built in, right? Carousel posts, TikTok videos, static posts. That's where you can start to really build those and nurture those relationships.
And speaking of Kirkpatrick Partners, you just took over as president, I believe, last October. Is that right?
No, I bought the company July 31st, 2023.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. What is it like running two companies at once? How do you find the time to do that?
Great question. I don't sleep a lot. So there's that. No, there's a lot of like as different as the two companies are, there's also a lot of synergies. They're very complementary, right? Like we're never going to get rid of instructional design. We're always going to have the need for learning and training and content, right? But we also have to evaluate and understand, is it actually working? And if not, like what the true problem is. So that's really nice. And we've been leveraging each other's resources on both sides, which has made it very helpful. And honestly, it's been leadership on my team and really ensuring I have the staff to like do as opposed to me just doing, right? Because if I am doing everything, that's just two jobs.
Right.
And that's not sustainable for the future. Yeah. So it's really developing that team. And that's really like, they deserve all the credit. Like everything that happened last week with Kirkpatrick, like that was all my team. I dreamt up the idea, started them down the path, but really the execution was all them. And they really deserve that credit.
Well, kudos to them. And before I get you out of here today, I have one more question. Do you have any advice for folks that are looking to get into this developing training in this kind of style of more digestible and short form? And I think folks like generally go into things like this and go, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. What type of equipment do I need? So any potential advice for our listeners would be wonderful.
Absolutely. So I think there's almost two things I would say here. First, in terms of like, where do I start? Your cell phone is literally sometimes the best camera that you have, right? So you don't have to go out and get a fancy camera. Your cell phone is good enough. Cell phone, if we're ever at a trade show where you're at, you'll see our TikTok booth is literally a ring light and one of my very old cell phones. And me dance bombing behind you.
Cool.
Or behind it. But that's it. In terms of trying, like if you're new or you want to start to understand, like how can I shift how I approach learning in a more marketing mindset, throw out your instructional design books, right? And start picking up some marketing books. Like you're going to start to see a lot of synergies there, right? You're like, as long as you've applied, and your good sound instructional design principles, good. Now lift your head up out of the learning field and go see how the business does things. We want to be business partners, but we only stick in our learning world. We've got to look up and actually read the books they're reading, listen to the podcasts that they're listening to, watch the YouTube videos that they're listening to. By doing all of those things, you can start to reframe and see what's important to them. And I just like to pay attention, right? Like what are people consuming? Like Gary Vee right now is talking about live streaming and like why that's going to be so big. So now I'm like, well, let me like see what this whole live streaming thing is all about. Like, why would someone want to watch a live stream? And how could I apply like why people want to watch a live stream to learning? And are there things I can mimic there? It's asking those questions that can help you think outside of the box a little bit.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. I think a lot of folks get bogged down in just doing what they've normally done for years and years in instructional design. And it really is time for folks to wake up and see the other options out there. And I think you talking about looking at it from a marketing side of things instead of just a regular instructional design thing is so important because they are very similar, but the one thing that marketing really strives to always do is get that impact immediately. And I think that's important for learners because like we've talked about, this is this is the way folks learn today. If I want to learn something, I'm going to go to YouTube, or I'm going to go to TikTok. I'm going to go search for things in a video format, because that's an easy way for me to digest it and go, okay, this is, now I know how to fix this part of my car. Now I know how to fix this this light switch that for some reason burnt out. So yeah, I think this was an incredible conversation. I want to thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today. So really appreciate it, Vanessa, and excited to keep following your journey and see where it takes you, because my gosh, it seems like it's been a whirlwind over the last several years, but you are really killing it in the industry. And so thanks again for joining us and sharing your insight.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us this week. As always, like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter, The Buzz, to keep up with all the exciting changes in the world of learning and development. See you next time.